My name is Sarah. For 15 years, I've been a loyal soldier in the corporate trenches, a marketing strategist who believed that merit, dedication, and a proven track record were the currency of success. I was wrong. Imagine working your entire career for a dream promotion, the one that represents the culmination of all your late nights, all your sacrificed weekends, all your passion. Imagine earning it, truly earning it, only to see it snatched away by someone who literally made up their entire life story to get it. That's exactly what happened to me. And this is the story of how I handled it. It's not a story about shouting matches or dramatic confrontations in the boardroom. It's a story about the quiet, patient, and meticulous art of revenge. A story about how I used the very tools of my trade narrative, perception, and attention to detail to dismantle a life built on lies. The email landed in my inbox at 9:02 a.m. on a Monday morning. The subject line was bright, cheerful, and utterly devastating. Exciting news, announcing our new senior director of marketing. My heart didn't just sink, it plummeted. It was a physical sensation, a sudden cold weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I had been so sure the promotion had been mine to lose. I had aced the interviews. My performance reviews were stellar. I had successfully managed the company's 2 largest accounts for the past 5 years. I had bled for this company, for this role. I clicked open the email, my hand trembling slightly. And there it was, in a bold corporate font, next to a smiling, professionally shot headshot. Please join us in congratulating Serena Vance on her promotion to senior director. Serena. Of course, it was Serena. Serena Vance had joined our team 6 months prior, a whirlwind of charisma and dazzling smiles. She was one of those people who seemed to radiate a kind of effortless brilliance. She was charming, she was witty, and she had a story. Oh, did she have a story? In the short time she had been with us, Serena had perfected the art of the inspirational anecdote. She would drop little nuggets of her tragic, triumphant life story into casual conversations, into team meetings, into one-on-one chats with senior leadership. She was, according to the narrative she so carefully crafted, a first-generation college graduate who had clawed her way out of abject poverty. She had single-handedly raised her 2 younger siblings after a vague, unnamed family tragedy had left them orphaned. She was battling a chronic, debilitating illness, an invisible struggle she bore with a quiet, noble grace. And through all this unimaginable hardship, she was a corporate superstar, a shining example of resilience and grit. It was a masterpiece of personal branding. And our CEO, David Chen, a man with a genuinely empathetic heart and a deep, abiding love for a good story of resilience, ate it up with a spoon. He was captivated by her. We all were, at first. She was a walking, talking inspirational poster, a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity. How could my steady, reliable 15-year track record of simply doing my job exceptionally well possibly compete with that? I stared at the email, at her smiling, triumphant face, and I tried to be gracious. I tried to swallow the bitter pill of my disappointment. She had a better story. In the modern corporate world, sometimes the best story wins, even if the metrics don't back it up. I told myself to let it go, to be the bigger person, to be a team player. I walked over to her desk, forced a smile that felt like it was cracking my face, and congratulated her. "I'm so thrilled, Sarah," she'd said, her eyes shining with what I now know was pure, unadulterated deceit. "I just feel so incredibly grateful for this opportunity. It's more than I ever dreamed of, considering where I came from." I just nodded, the words of my own genuine congratulations turning to ash in my mouth. I retreated to my cubicle, the quiet hum of the office suddenly feeling oppressive, hostile. I tried to let it go. I really did. But then, the little cracks started to appear, and my quiet disappointment began to curdle into a cold, sharp suspicion. The first crack was small, almost unnoticeable. A few weeks after her promotion, a group of us were in the office kitchen, making coffee. Someone was talking about their upcoming ski trip to Aspen. Serena, who had been quiet up until that point, let out a small, nostalgic sigh. "Oh, Aspen," she'd said, her voice wistful. "I haven't been in years. We used to have a small vacation home there when I was a kid. The skiing is just divine." The conversation moved on, but her words snagged in my mind. A vacation home, in Aspen. It didn't quite fit the narrative of a childhood spent in abject poverty, of clawing her way out of the gutter. It was a small thing, a slip of the tongue, perhaps an exaggeration. I told myself I was being petty, jealous. I pushed it down. But then, a week later, there was another crack. We were in a team meeting, brainstorming ideas for a new campaign. Serena, in her new role as senior director, was leading the discussion. She was talking about targeting an affluent, educated demographic. "We need to think about their mindset," she'd said, her voice full of authority. "I remember from my time at boarding school in Switzerland, the culture is very different. There's a certain expectation of quality." Boarding school, in Switzerland, the words hung in the air. I looked around the conference table. No one else seemed to have noticed, or if they did, they didn't show it. They were all too busy nodding along, captivated by her confident, worldly air. But my internal alarm bells were not just ringing. They were screaming. Boarding school in Switzerland and a childhood raising your orphan siblings in poverty were two stories that could not possibly coexist in the same universe. One of them was a lie, and I was beginning to have a very strong suspicion about which one it was. Have you ever seen someone's story just not quite add up? That feeling when the pieces don't fit? When the math is wrong? It's a deeply unsettling feeling, like noticing a glitch in the matrix. I wasn't looking for dirt. I told myself that over and over. I was looking for truth. Because if she had lied about this, about the very foundation of the identity that had so clearly influenced her promotion, then it wasn't just an unfair situation. It was a fraud that had cost me the job I had dedicated my life to. My quiet frustration hardened into a cold, quiet determination. My grief over the lost promotion was replaced by the intellectual curiosity of a strategist with a problem to solve. Serena was the problem. Her story was the puzzle. And I, with my marketer's mind for research and my analyst's eye for detail, knew exactly where to start looking for the pieces. The investigation began that night. It was not a dramatic, cloak-and-dagger affair. It was a quiet, meticulous, and deeply personal process, conducted in the blue glow of my laptop screen late at night, after my daughter was asleep and the house was silent. It started with a name. Serena Vance. It was an unusual name, a memorable name, and in the age of the internet, it was a trail of breadcrumbs. I started with the obvious, social media. Her current profiles were carefully curated, a professional blend of corporate headshots and inspirational quotes. But the internet has a long memory. I started digging deeper, using old search engines, looking for cached profiles, for forgotten accounts from a decade ago. I went through old university alumni networks, online forums, anything I could find. It was slow, painstaking work, but I am nothing if not meticulous. And then, I found it. A single, forgotten photo album on a defunct photo-sharing site from the early 2000s. It was an album from a university ski club trip, and there she was. A younger Serena, her face bright and carefree, posing on a ski slope. The caption, written by a friend, read, "Serena showing us all up on the slopes at her family's place in Aspen. Some people have all the luck." The vacation home wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was real. The first piece of the puzzle clicked into place, and it was a piece that didn't fit her story at all. This was just the beginning. I knew there was more. I had a contact, an old college acquaintance who had gone into private investigation. I hesitated for a day, wrestling with my conscience. Was I going too far? Was this a desperate, unethical act of a bitter, passed-over employee? Then I thought of her smiling, lying face. I thought of the CEO's empathetic, gullible eyes. I thought of the promotion that should have been mine. This wasn't just about me. It was about the principle of the thing. It was about the integrity of the workplace. It was about the truth. I picked up the phone and made the call. "I have a research project for you," I said, my voice calm and steady. "I need you to find out everything you can about a woman named Serena Vance." The report from my investigator landed in my inbox a week later. It was a simple, password-protected PDF file. I opened it, my heart pounding with a mixture of dread and a grim, vindictive excitement. The truth, when it finally came, hit me like a ton of bricks. It was worse. So much worse than I could have ever imagined. Serena hadn't just exaggerated. She hadn't just embellished. She had fabricated her entire life. Every single pillar of her inspirational story was a complete and utter lie. The abject poverty? Her father was a renowned surgeon. Her mother, a successful art dealer. They lived in one of the most affluent, exclusive neighborhoods in the city. The report contained a link to a glossy magazine feature on their sprawling, architect-designed home. The first-generation college grad? Both of her parents had graduate degrees from Ivy League universities. Serena herself had not clawed her way through a state school. She had attended the most elite, most expensive private boarding school in the country, followed by 4 years at a prestigious liberal arts college in New England, the one in Switzerland being a finishing school summer program. The report included links to the school's alumni directories, with her name and photo listed. The orphaned siblings she raised after a family tragedy? She was an only child. The tragedy was the death of a distant great-uncle, a man she had met twice in her entire life. And the chronic, debilitating illness she bore with such quiet grace? The investigator had managed to uncover, through a source, that it was a mild, easily managed gluten intolerance. I stared at the screen, at the cold, hard, irrefutable facts of her privileged, cosseted, and utterly unremarkable life. My initial shock, the sheer, breathtaking audacity of her lies, quickly gave way to something else. The simmering anger I had been feeling for weeks cooled, hardening into something cold, sharp, and dangerous, a strategic resolve. This wasn't just unfair to me anymore. This was a profound, systemic betrayal of trust. It was a mockery of every single person who had ever faced real hardship, real tragedy, real illness. She had weaponized their pain, their struggle, and she had used it to steal a promotion from someone who had earned it through honest, hard work. She hadn't just lied. She had committed a kind of identity theft, stealing the narrative of the underprivileged to advance her own privileged life. I closed the file. I leaned back in my chair, the blue light of the monitor illuminating my face in the dark room. The question was no longer if I should expose her. The question was how. A direct confrontation was still too risky. She was a master manipulator. She would twist it, deny it, paint me as a jealous, obsessive stalker. Going to HR with a privately commissioned investigator's report was a minefield. No. The punishment had to fit the crime. She had built her career on a public narrative, so her downfall had to be just as public. It had to be a story, a feature story perhaps, one that she would willingly, eagerly participate in, one that would seem like her greatest triumph, right up until the moment it became her public execution. I didn't know how I was going to do it yet, but I knew I needed an opportunity, a platform. I just had to be patient. I just had to wait for the perfect stage to present itself. And as fate, or perhaps karma, would have it, I didn't have to wait very long at all. I leaned back in my chair, the blue light of the monitor illuminating my face in the dark room. The question was no longer if I should expose her. The question was how. A direct confrontation was still too risky. She was a master manipulator. She would twist it, deny it, paint me as a jealous, obsessive stalker. Going to HR with a privately commissioned investigator's report was a minefield, a messy battle that could easily backfire on me. No, the punishment had to fit the crime. She had built her career on a public narrative, so her downfall had to be just as public. It had to be a story, a feature story perhaps, one that she would willingly, eagerly participate in, one that would seem like her greatest triumph, right up until the moment it became her public execution. I didn't know how I was going to do it yet, but I knew I needed an opportunity, a platform. I just had to be patient. I just had to wait for the perfect stage to present itself. And as fate, or perhaps karma, would have it, I didn't have to wait very long at all. Just when I thought I would have to orchestrate some complex, risky confrontation, fate, or perhaps karma, intervened with a beautiful, simple, and utterly perfect opportunity. It arrived, as most things did in our company, in the form of a cheerful, company-wide email. The email was from the Internal Communications Department. It was the announcement for the next issue of our glossy quarterly company magazine, a self-important publication called Innovate, Inspire. It was usually filled with fawning profiles of senior executives and dry articles about synergy and leveraging core competencies. I usually deleted it without reading, but this time, the subject line caught my eye. Our next feature, Serena Vance's Inspirational Journey. I clicked it open, and there she was, her professional headshot, smiling out from the email next to a block of text that sang her praises. The magazine, the email announced, was going to do a multi-page feature on our new senior director of marketing. It would be a glowing profile, highlighting her triumphant journey from hardship to the executive suite, presenting her as a shining testament to our company's values of resilience, grit, and creating opportunities for all. I read the words, and a slow, cold, knowing smile spread across my face. It was perfect. It was a gift from the gods of vengeance. They were going to hand me the weapon, load it for me, and then ask me to help them aim it at her head. That's when I saw it. Not just an injustice, but an opportunity. A beautiful, elegant, and exquisitely ironic opportunity. I wouldn't have to leak a single document. I wouldn't have to make a single accusation. I would simply help. I would help them write the most authentic, detailed, and factually accurate article possible, and I knew exactly how I was going to do it. The next morning, I ran into the head of the Internal Communications Department, a harried but well-meaning woman named Brenda, in the office kitchen. I had my script ready. "Brenda, hi," I said, my voice full of bright, helpful energy. "I just saw the email about the feature on Serena. It's such a wonderful idea. Her story is just so incredibly inspiring." Brenda beamed, pleased with the praise. "Thanks, Sarah. We think so too. It's exactly the kind of uplifting content we want to be producing." "Absolutely," I said, nodding enthusiastically. "You know, with my marketing background and my attention to detail, I was thinking, Serena's story is so powerful, it's really important that we get all the details right to do it justice. If you need an extra pair of eyes, someone to help with the fact-checking or the narrative flow, I would be more than happy to volunteer some of my time to assist the team. I just think it's that important." I had framed it perfectly. I was the dedicated team player, the marketing expert, offering my skills out of a pure, selfless desire to uplift my new boss and celebrate the company's values. Brenda was thrilled. "Sarah, that would be amazing," she said, her face flooding with relief. "To be honest, my team is a bit swamped. Having someone with your strategic eye on this would be invaluable." "It's my pleasure," I said, my smile never faltering. "Anything to help tell Serena's story authentically." The trap was set, the door was open, and the wolf, dressed in the sheep's clothing of a helpful colleague, had just been invited into the fold. My assistance began with a kickoff meeting with Brenda's small, overworked team of writers and designers. I came prepared with a list of suggestions to ensure the article was as rich and authentic as possible. Serena was there, of course, looking radiant, basking in the glow of her own impending feature. She loved the idea of me helping. "Oh, Sarah, that's so sweet of you," she'd gushed. I'm so glad we'll be working on this together. It's great to have your support. Of course, I said, my voice dripping with a sincerity that would have fooled a polygraph. Your story deserves to be told properly. My first suggestion was about sourcing. To really bring her early years to life, I said to the team. My expression, one of earnest, creative brainstorming. We should try to get some quotes from people who knew her back then. A childhood friend, perhaps? Someone who saw her struggles firsthand. It would add such a powerful, personal layer of authenticity. I already had a name in mind. A woman I had found through my research, a woman who had attended the same elite private high school as Serena, a woman who, I knew from her social media, was now a freelance journalist, someone who would know how to answer questions carefully, to tell a story that was technically true but contextually devastating. I passed her name to the writer. I think this might be a good place to start, I said. I believe they were quite close. My next suggestion was about specifics. Vague stories of hardship are fine, I explained, putting on my marketing strategist hat, but it's the specific, verifiable details that make a narrative truly resonate. We shouldn't just say she came from a tough neighborhood. We should name it. We shouldn't just say she went to a local school. We should name it. It makes the story more real, more tangible for the reader. I knew, of course, that the name of her actual neighborhood, a gated community with a polo club, and the name of her actual high school, a prestigious academy with a tuition that cost more than my yearly salary, would scream fraud to anyone with a modicum of plays, curiosity, and a search engine. But I framed it as a way to honor her, to celebrate the specific places that forged her incredible character. The team loved it. Serena, caught up in the flattery, readily agreed, providing the names herself. Each detail she provided was another nail she hammered into her own coffin. And then, the pièce de résistance. The masterstroke. The visuals. We need a photo from her childhood, I said, my voice full of creative passion. A before picture to contrast with the successful after of who she is today. Something that really captures the essence of her journey. Serena looked a little hesitant for the first time. Oh, I don't know, she said. I don't think we have many photos from back then. Things were difficult. Nonsense, I said with a warm, encouraging smile. There must be something. A school photo? A family picture? I turned to the writer. Even a slightly grainy, imperfect photo would be more powerful. It would feel more real, more authentic. And then I made my move. In fact, I said, as if the idea had just struck me, I was doing some deep dive research into company history for another project, and I stumbled upon an old society gala program from about 15 years ago. Our CEO was being honored. And I saw a photo of a young woman who looked so much like you, Serena. It was a picture from the youth benefactors table. I paused. It couldn't be you, of course. This was a very lavish black tie event. I saw a flash of pure, cold panic in her eyes. She knew exactly the photo I was talking about. I had found it in an online archive of a local society magazine. A photo of a 16-year-old Serena, draped in pearls, her arm linked with her surgeon father's, smiling at a charity gala. Oh, she said, her voice a little shaky. That's funny. I did do some charity work as a teenager. Well, the resemblance is uncanny, I said brightly. I'll send the file to the design team. Maybe it's not the right fit, but it's always good to have options for historical context. I said it with a completely straight face, my expression one of pure, helpful innocence. I had just handed them the time bomb, and they had accepted it with gratitude. The article was no longer just a feature story. It was a meticulously constructed trap, baited with Serena's own ego and armed with the beautiful, undeniable, and utterly devastating truth. All I had to do now was wait for it to be published. End of part 2. Int. Corporate office. Day. The day the Innovate Inspire issue was released felt like the quiet, charged moment before a lightning strike. The magazines were everywhere, glossy stacks placed in the lobby, in the kitchens, on every common area table. And on the cover, there she was, Serena Vance, her face professionally airbrushed, beaming under the headline, "The Power of Resilience: How Serena Vance Forged Success from Hardship." It was a masterpiece of corporate hagiography. The article, written with breathless admiration by Brenda's team, was everything she could have dreamed of. It painted her as a modern-day saint, a corporate Cinderella who had risen from the ashes of poverty and tragedy to claim her rightful place in the executive suite. My carefully planted facts were woven seamlessly into the narrative, adding what the writer later called a remarkable layer of granular authenticity. The initial reaction was a wave of cloying, predictable praise. Emails flew around the office, congratulating Serena on her bravery and her inspiring vulnerability. The CEO, David Chen, sent a company-wide memo lauding the article and holding Serena up as the embodiment of the company's core values. Serena herself was a radiant, humble star. She accepted the praise with a practiced modesty, her eyes shining with unshed, fraudulent tears. "I just hope my story can inspire others," she said to a group of admirers in the kitchen, her voice thick with emotion, "to show them that no matter where you come from, you can achieve anything." I watched from a distance, a silent, patient observer. I sipped my coffee and offered my own quiet, smiling congratulations when appropriate. I was the supportive colleague, the helpful team player. No one suspected that I was the architect of the time bomb that was about to detonate in the middle of their celebration. The first explosion was small, a quiet tremor in the digital world. The magazine was also published on the company's public-facing blog, and the comments section was where the first seeds of doubt began to sprout. It started with a comment from a user named Westwood Prep Alum, 98. "Interesting article. I went to Westwood Preparatory Academy with Serena. A fantastic school. So glad to see a fellow Centurion doing so well. Though, I must have misremembered the part about abject poverty. My memory is of her family's annual charity skiathon in Aspen. LOL. Congrats anyway, Serena." I smiled into my coffee mug. Westwood Preparatory Academy. The elite high school I had suggested they name for authenticity. A school with a current annual tuition of over $60,000. An hour later, another comment appeared, this time under the section describing her tough, inner-city neighborhood of Northwood Bluffs. Great story, but a small correction. Northwood Bluffs is a gated community. My parents live there. It's lovely. Not sure I'd call it tough, unless you're talking about the golf course's back nine. A few more comments like this trickled in, people who knew the real story, not out of malice, but out of a genuine, confused desire to connect with the person they thought they knew. Each comment was a small, sharp pinprick in the balloon of her fabricated narrative. Then came the quotes from her childhood friend, the freelance journalist I had recommended. Read in the context of Serena's official story, the quotes had seemed poignant. "Serena always had a drive that was different from the rest of us," the friend was quoted as saying. "While we were all worried about debutante balls and which European city to summer in, Serena was already focused on her future, on making a name for herself outside of her family's shadow." But now, with the context provided by the online comments, those same words dripped with a delicious, subtle sarcasm. Debutante balls. Summering in Europe. The writer had done her job perfectly, telling the truth in a way that was utterly devastating. The tide began to turn inside the office. I saw people huddled around their monitors, whispering, their eyes darting over to Serena's glass-walled office. The cheerful congratulations died down, replaced by a low, confused murmur. The praise turned to puzzled questions. And then there was the photo. The pièce de résistance. The picture of a 16-year-old Serena at the lavish charity gala, draped in pearls, smiling next to her beaming, surgeon father. The magazine had run it as a full-page image, with the caption I had suggested, "Even as a teenager, Serena Vance understood the importance of giving back to the community. The photo, juxtaposed with the text about her raising her orphan siblings in poverty, was so cognitively dissonant, so utterly, laughably fraudulent, that it broke the spell completely. It wasn't a crack in her story anymore, it was a chasm. The final act was mine. That afternoon, I used a secure, anonymous email service to send a single, simple email to a prominent industry gossip blogger I followed, a woman known for her sharp wit and her love of exposing corporate hypocrisy. The email was short. Subject: an inspirational story you might find interesting. Body: you should take a look at the latest feature on the Innovate Inspire blog. The story of Serena Vance is truly one for the ages. Pay close attention to the comments section, and be sure to look up Westwood Preparatory Academy's tuition fees. Happy hunting. That was all it took. The floodgates opened. By the next morning, the story had exploded. The industry blog had run a scathing, meticulously researched takedown, complete with screenshots of the article, the comments, and public records detailing her family's wealth and her educational history. The headline was brutal: "The Poverty of Lies. Did marketing director Serena Vance fake her entire life story for a promotion?" The link was everywhere. It was being passed around the office in hushed, frantic instant messages. It was on industry forums. It was on LinkedIn. The panic that erupted within our company was a beautiful, terrible thing to behold. You could feel the tension in the air. It was a physical presence, a low-grade hum of dread and frantic damage control. The silence in the executive suite was deafening. The CEO, who had so proudly championed her story, was now faced with the humiliating reality that he had been duped, that he had staked the company's reputation on a complete and utter fraud. I watched Serena's world crumble from the quiet safety of my cubicle. I saw her being called into a closed-door meeting with the CEO and the head of HR. She was in there for over an hour. When she emerged, her face was ashen, her eyes red-rimmed and wide with a terror I recognized all too well. It was the terror of someone whose carefully constructed world has just been reduced to rubble. She walked past my desk, a zombie in a designer suit. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone. She just stared straight ahead, a woman walking the green mile of her own professional demise. I felt a surge of something cold and powerful. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was a sense of profound, quiet, and absolute rightness. It was the feeling of a master strategist watching her plan unfold to perfection. It was the feeling of a debt being paid in full. The article was supposed to be her coronation. Instead, I had turned it into her obituary. She had built her kingdom on a foundation of lies, and I had simply, quietly, and meticulously handed her the truth. And the truth had burned it all to the ground. The internal investigation was, as I had predicted, swift. There was nothing to investigate, really. There was only a truth to be confirmed, a truth I had so helpfully, so publicly, laid bare for everyone to see. The company, desperate to contain the public relations disaster, moved with a speed and ruthlessness that was almost impressive. Serena's deception wasn't just a private embarrassment. It was a public stain on the company's carefully crafted image of integrity and meritocracy. And David Chen, our CEO, was a man who understood the importance of image above all else. Serena was fired, not quietly, not with a gentle, face-saving resignation. She was terminated for gross misconduct and professional fraud. The announcement was made in a stark, cold, company-wide email that was a masterclass in corporate damage control. It spoke of a zero-tolerance policy for dishonesty and a renewed commitment to the values of authenticity and integrity. It never mentioned her by name, but it didn't have to. Everyone knew. Her name, once a symbol of inspiration, was now a byword for deceit. Her reputation, so meticulously built on a foundation of lies, crumbled overnight. She became a ghost. Her photo was scrubbed from the company website. Her name was removed from the digital masthead of the very magazine that had been her undoing. She was unpersoned, erased from our corporate history as cleanly and as efficiently as a corrupted file being deleted from a server. I was never directly implicated, of course. My fingerprints were nowhere on the weapon. I was just the helpful colleague, the diligent marketing strategist who had offered her assistance. But I saw the knowing looks. I felt the shift in the way people spoke to me. There was a new respect, a new caution in their eyes. They didn't know for sure what I had done, but they suspected. I had become a quiet, unassuming force to be reckoned with. The most satisfying moment came a week after Serena's termination. The CEO, David Chen, called me into his office. It was a spacious corner office, much like the one Serena had briefly occupied. He asked me to close the door. He looked tired, older than he had a few weeks ago. The ordeal had taken its toll on him. He had been made a fool of, and he knew it. "Sarah," he began, his voice low and serious. "The last few weeks have been challenging. A serious error in judgment was made, not just by Ms. Vance, but by me, by all of us in leadership. H.E. I just nodded, my expression one of quiet, professional sympathy. He looked at me, a long, appraising look. "Brenda from Comms told me how helpful you were on the magazine feature," he said, his eyes searching mine. "She said you had a real, sharp eye for detail, a commitment to getting the facts right." "I believe authenticity is crucial for any successful narrative, David," I said, my voice perfectly even. "It's the foundation of good marketing." A slow, wry, almost pained smile touched his lips. He knew. He didn't know how I knew, but he knew that I knew. And he knew that I had orchestrated the whole thing without leaving a single trace. He didn't see a subordinata. He saw a master strategist, a player of a game he hadn't even realized was being played. And in that moment, I saw not just respect in his eyes, but a flicker of something that looked a lot like fear. "Indeed," he said quietly. "Well, your commitment to truth has been noted." It was a subtle acknowledgement, a quiet truce, a concession of my victory. The conversation ended, and I walked out of his office, the quiet hum of the office floor sounding, for the first time in a long time, like a song of victory. Months passed. The scandal faded, as all scandals do, replaced by the next quarter's earnings reports and the next big product launch. The company moved on, and so did I. Then, a new position was created, a strategic reorganization. The role of Senior Director of Marketing, the one Serena had so briefly and disastrously held, was restructured. A new, more senior role was announced, Vice President of Brand Strategy. It was a bigger job, with more responsibility, a larger team, and a seat at the executive table. This time, there was no company-wide search. There were no panels of interviews. There were no fawning articles about inspirational life stories. The offer came directly to me, from the CEO himself. This time, there was no sob story needed. My competence, my integrity, and my 15-year track record of quiet, consistent excellence spoke for themselves. I got the promotion, the one I had deserved all along. My new office is on the executive floor. It has a window that overlooks the entire campus, the place where I started my career, the place where I was overlooked, and the place where I finally, quietly, triumphed. It's a spacious office, but I keep it simple. There are no inspirational posters on the walls, just charts, data, and strategies. And on my desk, next to my computer, is a single framed copy of the Innovate, Inspire magazine cover, the one with Serena's smiling, fraudulent face. It's a reminder that the most compelling narratives are not the ones that are fabricated, but the ones that are earned. A reminder that truth, while sometimes quiet and patient, has a power that no lie can withstand. It's a strange feeling, seeing justice unfold like that, not with a bang, but with the slow, inevitable, and meticulous collapse of a structure built on a rotten foundation. You don't need to fake a story to be inspiring. You just need to live your truth and let your work, your character, your integrity speak for itself. True success isn't built on manipulation or a fabricated past. It's built on merit, on honesty, and on a genuine commitment to who you are. Serena's mistake wasn't just that she lied. It was that she underestimated the quiet power of the truth and the quiet determination of the woman she had wronged. This wasn't about revenge, not truly. Not in the hot-blooded, emotional way people think of it. It was about principle. It was about the restoration of order. It was about a deep, abiding belief that in the long run, competence should matter more than charisma, that facts should matter more than fiction, and that integrity should always, always win. If this story of workplace justice resonated with you, even just a little, please give this video a like. It helps more people find it and reminds me that these quiet battles for integrity are being fought in offices all over the world. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to expose a workplace fraud or seen someone get ahead by playing dirty? Whatever your story is, your voice matters here. Let's create a community where truth is the most valued currency. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more true stories of triumph over adversity. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me share my story.